welcome to Pints Politics. I'm your host, Dan Parsons, and we've missed you. I don't know about you, but it's a bit of a different time now in this coronavirus quarantine days, and so we've missed you. We had a great lineup back in March that we had to cancel. A couple of good friends from Baird Law Firm in Omaha, and then my friend, the mayor of Norfolk, was going to join us as well. And so anyway, we'll come back to that episode maybe next month. And so we didn't want to miss April. So here we are in April, and we're not in the studio. We're not at Fuse Co-working. We're not at Parsons Public Relations. We're in a beautiful backyard of my good friend Kevin Shinn. So Chef Kevin Shinn, welcome.
Thank you.
To Pints and Politics.
Glad you're here.
Thanks for having us. And is this your second or third appearance in the history of Pints and Politics?
I think it's my third.
I think you're right.
Right. So
viewers and listeners, you'll have to go back and listen to some of the past episodes of Kevin Shinn's appearance. But so this seemed easy. We're relatively social distanced here. We're out in the wide open.
Plenty of air circulation.
Yeah, so this seems fairly safe. So first question is, what are we drinking?
Well, we have a nice array of local beers here. Why don't you grab one right there?
Yeah.
Looks like Cosmic Eye.
Yeah, Arrow of Time. So Cosmic Eye, Sam Riggins, who Sam is also on Pints and Politics back in the day, actually before he even opened Cosmic Eye. And so cheers to you, Sam. And so this is a couple of Sam's beers from Cosmic Eye. This is Arrow of Time, Black IPA. You want that one?
Sure.
And then, I've got 1,000 Truths, the Rye IPA. So let's bear with us as we pour ourselves a beer in Chef Kevin Shinn's backyard on a beautiful early spring afternoon. Wherever you are, toast to all of you and cheers, friend.
So good.
Wow.
So good.
Sam's killing it out there. Go see Sam Riggins at Cosmic Eye. One of the things, I know you've got a great topic you want to talk about that fits so well with what we do at Pints and Politics, because really it's all about talking about politics while enjoying an adult beverage in a way that really no one does anymore, in a manner that's hospitable and friendly. And so I know you got a great topic. But before we do that, some of the things that I know our viewers and listeners have been thinking about the last few months. Just a toast to Karen, because we know we lost Karen last fall, and continue to think about her often. And
in about 5.5 months now, so I'm into that grief process, growing every day.
Yeah. Well, and you do such a wonderful job of allowing us to grieve with you. You're very public and with your blog and posts on social media.
It's been a good way for me to not only let people know, but also process what is it that I'm going through. And I've always been open about those type of things, especially when Karen was diagnosed with cancer in 2010. Since she and I were in a very public business, a lot of people were always curious, and so my blog was a way to tell her story for her that gave people permission to go ahead and ask.
Yeah.
So I got in front of that whenever we would have a new diagnosis or something new or something bad. I would write about it because Karen wanted to talk about it but didn't want to have to say the same thing over and over again. So that's always been my MO since I learned how to put my words out there.
Yeah, well, you're a great writer and you're a great friend, and we toast Karen and remember her fondly and continue to carry on, because that's what she would want. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, in this era of COVID-19, we're all shut in, I wanted to shout out to my barber, Gary, who, by the way, Gary from the Captain's Chair was also a guest on Pints and Politics way back in the day. And so the people who used to make fun of people in your condition
Right.
are now not laughing.
I have not needed Gary's services for 20 years. Not that there's anything against that, or
Yeah.
I just found a different path.
Yeah, but you are faring so much better because this is getting a little out of hand at this point. And so, Gary, I want to know: are you doing a lottery system? How is it that we're going to get in when we're able to get back into you? I don't know how that's going to happen, Gary, but
I wonder is there a black market for haircuts now?
I imagine there is. I imagine there is. Although, yeah, there's some pretty strange stuff
Yeah.
I've seen. So that's one of the other themes we wanted to kind of weave into our backyard conversation today was just local.
Right.
You know, continuing to support our local vendors and local restaurants and breweries, and I know you've been doing that. A lot of us have been doing that. So we want to. One of the things we want to do is highlight some of the local craft beers here this afternoon. And so the other thing I wanted to ask you about before we get into our politics conversation, you've been baking because you're not
Yes.
only a writer
Yes.
and a
Yes.
chef, but you're also a baker.
And I think add teacher to
Yes.
that moniker. I love sharing my knowledge with people. I love learning, but then I also love seeing someone else see their eyes open, the lights go on, and especially when people help their kids.
Yeah.
And that's been a really, really fun part of this process. I've kept the Bread&Cup starter alive since 2006.
That's so cool.
And it survived several restaurants and a brewery, and it's still giving life to whoever wants it. So my daughter had the idea of filming a bread video, bread instruction,
Yeah.
and it kind of got out of hand.
In your kitchen.
Right.
Yeah, because you've got everything that you need.
Yeah,
and-
everything we need.
Uh-huh.
And then people are coming by to pick up starter, and then they're sending pictures
Yeah.
with them baking with their kids, and here's our pizza, and here's our kids with their hands in the dough, and that is really, really fun for me to see that kind of generational gift continue on.
Yeah, because let's face it, I've had some interactions with people who still have kids at home, because we both are empty nesters, and you know what a challenge. I remember when I first started Parsons Public Relations back in '03. You know, I had 3 kids at home, and I remember what it was like when it was summer break, or you know, just when the kids were home and I'd try to work. I can't imagine what it's like for some of these parents now.
Yeah.
Well,
if I can give them a little diversion by a few hours of bread baking, that's my contribution.
absolutely. Okay. And remind me, we'll switch beers here, and because
Okay.
we want to give some shout outs to some other people too. Okay. When I asked if I could come over and drink, and actually bring Steve and a camera with me this time instead of just coming over and drinking, I said, what should we talk about? And again, you longtime, often guest on the show, and so it didn't take you long to come up with. So,
Right.
Great suggestion. Let's dive into it.
Okay. Well, I am interested in politics as an ideal. I don't like the current condition of politics. I like the idea of 2 opposing or 2 parties coming together to have to try to hammer out a solution in a situation that may be 2 ideas that seem polar opposite. I like that idea of politics. What I don't like is this.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you appreciate our system,
Yeah,
our 2-party system,
I do.
and how
as
we,
an ideal,
yeah,
correct.
Yep, and how that has worked fairly
Right.
well for over 200
Right.
years. Yeah.
What I don't like is what I would define as the spirit that has taken over politics. Because I come at everything I do from a position of hospitality.
Yeah.
If I am not hospitable to my guest, I'm not going to be in business very long. And I cannot alienate certain segments of my population by yelling at them or berating them or telling them they're wrong. I have to somehow figure out how can I serve vegans as well as omnivores and carnivores and vegetarians and pescatarians. How can I do that? So hospitality is woven into everything that I do.
Sure.
And I think when I came across a book about 10 years ago called Setting the Table by a restaurateur, Danny Meyer,
Yep.
his assessment is hospitality applies to every business.
That's an
Not
amazing
just-
concept. So you can't be the soup Nazi.
No,
Yeah,
no, you can't.
that doesn't work.
No. Might work in isolated occasions, but not as a full-blown rule.
So when you suggested we have this conversation this way today, it's like, yes, let's do that. We go down lots of different rabbit holes. So yeah, and I know we've had these conversations over the years when you've had your restaurants, because there are some pretty high expectations from customers.
Right.
They you mentioned, talk a little bit about the gluten and the vegan tradition that started and how you dealt with that.
Well, we opened our restaurant in 2007, right at the height of the Atkins diet, when carbs were the enemy and of the devil, and so when you have a restaurant named Bread&Cup, it's just it was a challenge to get some people over the hump of, is this a good thing or a bad thing? My position always has been, how can I accommodate you? How can I help you? I may not be able to come to a full solution for everyone. For example, I would have people ask me or ask a server, are there any peanuts in this? And I would always tell my server, make sure I come out to the table if it's an allergy. Because there have been times I've just suggested to my customer that they don't eat here tonight. Because there might be peanut residue on that knife. And if that is a severe nut allergy, boy, I don't want to take that risk.
Sure.
And I would rather lose them as a customer than lose them as a human being to a serious reaction.
And that's an element of the hospitality that you championed and still do. That is to take that into the political realm. Sure, we want every vote, but the way we go at getting those votes, it's my tribe against your tribe, and we have to go to war, and whoever's left standing gets the spoils.
Yeah. Well, let me reflect to you my thinking here as I was preparing for our time together, and I want to start with what I mean by the word spirit. A spirit is a sense of the emotion, the sensibility, the sentiment of any interaction that I have with my guest. That's either any conversation, any transaction, any negotiation. That encounter there is a spirit that is introduced. And I'll give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
This morning, I'm working on painting my house. So I've been working with the paint store over here, and I talked to a young man named Andrew, and they've been very, very busy because it's on curbside pickup only, and their phone is just constantly busy. So I would call, no answer, or busy. Finally get in. Hi, this is Andrew. Can I help you? So I told him. He said. So
everybody's painting.
Everybody's painting.
Everybody's at home.
Everybody's at home. Yeah, doing something. Right. Yeah. So he asked me my name, and I had an account there. It says, "Oh, hey, Kevin, how are you doing?"
Oh.
Do I know you?
Wow.
And so he said, "What are you working on? What do you need?" And so before long, I thought I want to meet this guy. I'm on the phone with him. So when
Never met him.
Never met him. But immediately a spirit of kindness, of familiarity, of just a hospitable spirit came between us.
Yeah.
I could pick it up in his tone of voice. I could pick it up in his questions. And when I saw him this morning when I went over to pick up the paint, I could see it in his body.
Wow. So that's the kind of, you talk about customer service, that's the kind of, and I know we've had these conversations in the past. I know when you were hiring people for your restaurants, you always told me, I can teach someone how to do X, Y, and Z, but I can't teach that spirit of hospitality.
No, and that, I think that is where I'm coming from as I observe politics.
Yeah.
I'll turn on the radio or the television, and in 30 seconds I'll turn it back off because there's a spirit right now that is pervasive in the political dialogue that is anything but hospitable. It is angry, it is divisive, it is very hard for me to listen to.
So here's what I don't understand. I do and I don't understand, because I'm in the business of politics and I'm in the business of trying to shape message and deliver message. It's human nature that we are not only okay in seeing the car wreck, we want to see the car, not only witnessing the car wreck, but we want to see more of the car wreck, right?
Right.
We want to see more of that fighting and tribe against tribe politics, and that's why cable TV is what it is, and talk radio. So what is that human nature?
I think like attracts like. Anger attracts anger. Hospitality, kindness, consideration attracts kindness.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I would see it over and over. Someone would come into the restaurant, be angry, grumpy, and certain ones of my servers loved this, that I'm going to turn them around.
Yeah.
And by the end of the night, they're smiling, they're saying thank you, and leaving a big tip.
Or that couple that comes in and maybe thought they were going to have a special occasion, a special dinner, all of a sudden it turns south, and for whatever reason, one person is upset, and how can you turn that around?
Right, and so I think that's why we've seen such a division even in political news, is because we're looking for something that agrees with our spirit, and I think it's not going to change unless we change the spirit.
Right.
So therefore, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Here's my thought.
We are not in our normal setting. Thank goodness, none of us are in our normal setting. We're with Chef Kevin Shinn in his beautiful backyard, and we're talking hospitality and politics, and we're drinking wonderful local beer. So Kevin, my next choice, and you have something different, but I have a beautiful IPA from Nebraska Brewing Company, our friends at Nebraska Brewing Company, who have also been guests.
And mine is the one-way IPA from Brickway in Omaha. Big fan of theirs too.
So 2 Omaha beers.
And 2 IPAs.
And 2 IPAs. So producer Steve, we will make sure we let people know in our notes where they can find these wonderful beers. So, all right, cheers.
Cheers.
They're very similar in color.
Oh yeah.
So here's what this reminds me of. So I've been lamenting, as a lot of us have, of what we're missing out on, and one of the things I'm missing out on is baseball and college baseball. This brought me back to college baseball in Omaha, the College World Series, because they serve NBC beer, Nebraska Brewing Company beers up there, and oh my gosh, I'm so missing.
And on
baseball.
A day like today, perfect.
So anyway, let's continue on our conversation about hospitality and politics. You have some, and by the way, viewers and listeners, please, when you hear this and see it, we'd love to know your thoughts and get your input on this as well. So, tweet us, Facebook us, comment back to us. We want to hear your thoughts. So, next thoughts.
I, as a business owner and leader, I always felt the importance of understanding how is my business being received? And any business, I believe, has three common denominators. There's a product that you're trying to sell. There is a customer who you're trying to convince to buy it.
Yep.
But then there's also a profit. There has to be a profit, or it's just a hobby, and it won't sustain itself. So I've wondered, and maybe you can reflect with me, Dan. What is in politics? What is the product of politics?
Yeah.
Secondly, who is the customer?
Yeah.
And third, what is the profit of politics?
Yeah.
Will that apply in our conversation?
Yeah. Well, certainly the product is the candidate, and that candidate's ideas, and that candidate's ability to communicate those ideas and those policies to the voter. And so that's the product.
Okay.
Is the candidate
Okay,
and the candidate's ideas.
Let me respond from my observation. I think ideally that's right. Here's what I think has happened. The policy has not become the product.
Correct. You're so right. Yes.
The policy is not the product.
Yeah.
I don't think I think we've lost something there.
Well, we have, and I've been in this business long enough now to understand that. And again, whether it's it translates not only to my political political clients, but also some of my other policy-driven clients who maybe are not politicians. And you're right. I'm constantly trying to help get a message out that will advance the mission and accomplish the goal. But oftentimes the audience, via the news media, they're cynical, and again, it's whatever bleeds leads, right? It's whatever the crime is. I think it leads the 10 o'clock news.
And I think the reason that has shifted is the product has shifted.
Yeah.
That the product of politics is no longer the policy.
Yeah.
It is control.
Yeah.
That's the way I see our world today. Is we've shifted into we're peddling control, and I don't think that is obviously not healthy. Secondly, though, who do you think is the customer of politics? Well,
hopefully it's the voter, right?
Right.
It has to be the voter.
Right.
And again, more and more voters. Although I'm really encouraged. I think maybe one of the benefits to this pandemic may very well be. And again, I don't want to get into the political discussion of some political parties don't like this. Let me define what that is. And that is, we're expecting a record turnout in the May 12th primary election here in Nebraska because the state and the counties have encouraged and mailed out requests for mail-in ballots. I voted a week ago. First time I've ever voted by mail, unless it was an election that was only accessible by mail, like our one was last spring. And so I think that might be a byproduct of better government, that more people will go to the polls. And by the way, you're not seeing the traditional political tools being used because we can't go door to door. We're faced with, we can't hold rallies. We can't do retail politics like we're used to doing. So candidates are having to be creative and talk to people by phone. Direct mail obviously is still a tool. So anyway, I'll be fascinated to see if this starts a trend for more people being engaged and more people voting. I don't know if that.
I hope so.
Affects.
But from my vantage point, from where I sit, I feel like the customer has changed from the constituent to the politician.
Yes. No, that's, I won't dispute that.
And I think therein it lies some of the problem in our political discourse today, is that we've lost sight of the product, and we've lost sight of the customer. And thirdly, what is the profit? What would you say is the profit?
Well, the profit is, from the candidate's perspective, is you're elected to another term, or you're re-elected, or you're elected to another term.
Right. And would you consider that the profit even has changed? That the profit of the political system is now power?
Sure, it is. Absolutely.
It's no longer service.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is there was a movement, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer, to install term limits on local, state, federal. It hasn't really happened. With the idea, and also the idea of limiting political contributions and trying to get money or out of the equation as much. I think a lot of people consider that to be an abject failure of term limits.
Well, and here's why I think it's a failure, because we're not changing the right thing.
Correct.
We're not changing the spirit. So in my business of hospitality, if I want to change, if there's a spirit of apathy or unhappiness, I have to figure out where is that spirit originating, and I got to change that as a leader. I have to change that and inject a new spirit of hospitality, of generosity, of graciousness, of kindness. And so is that the same thing? That's why you and I live in different worlds.
Yeah, we do.
But is there something that politics can even learn from the world of hospitality? Can the political system realize that it will never change with laws? It will only change through the spirit.
Here's my assessment, and this, I've been drawn into I try not to get drawn into a cynical perspective, even though I've done this for many years. I still believe it still comes down to leadership.
Exactly.
It still comes down to that individual candidate who can break that mold.
Right. The only way that spirit is going to be broken, well, not the only way, but two ways, and a primary way is it starts with leadership, but it also starts from the ground up too.
Right. Yeah.
They meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that is also what will break cynicism. What will break the anger, the distrust, is people believing again. And I think this pandemic has given us an opportunity to reset and think, what's more important to me?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see families making drastic decisions about their lives because they realize, wow, I don't have to run my kids around all over the place.
Yeah.
They're actually better behaved now, and they seem to be in a better spirit.
Yeah.
And I think this pandemic is an opportunity. The headline that just drove me crazy in one of the news outlets was, "Pandemic brings out the worst in humanity." I said, well, it does not have to.
No.
Why is, but that it leads.
Yep.
So but from my standpoint, no, I'm seeing a lot of wonderful things that's emerging from people. Kindness. People, like, we're talking about our craft brew folks and our restaurant friends, that people are doing everything they can to order takeout, because they want these guys to succeed.
And the compassion that our community is showing to people who are out of work and been laid off.
Yes.
Okay, that was amazing. So for those political parties that want to contact you about running for office,
I'm not.
they're going to have to.
My phone's off.
You're going to have to see your PR guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, call Dan.
Yeah. Okay. Let's make the transition
All right.
as we begin
beer.
to wrap up here.
We got a really nice bottle from Code.
Yeah, so one of the traditions, one of the hangouts that you might find me and Chef Kevin at is Code Beer, one of your favorite hangouts that you
my
like
word.
to sit and write.
I wrote
and,
half my book at Code, I think.
And we're going to get to that, by the way, beep, in a minute. So I went down to see Matt just before I came over here. And so this is Tune-In Kokio. And this is his Imperial Stout. So he told me, so this is Code Beer here in Lincoln. And Matt, one of the owners, told me that he bottled like 500 of these. I don't know what
Are they
the time.
gone?
I asked him, because I got 3 of them. There's 30 left.
Wow.
So by the time you see this on Friday, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
So here, I'll let you.
All right.
I'll let you pour.
Oh my goodness. Look at,
Yeah, this is a dessert.
look at that.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is.
Oh my word.
Here's the description.
That is beautiful. I'm just going to pour you a little Karen pour.
In honor of Karen,
In
a
honor
Karen
of Karen.
pour. A super thick, chewy Imperial Stout with, with loads of coconut, chocolate, and vanilla. It's a dessert in a glass.
Oh my word.
Oh, wow.
Look at
Holy
that.
smokes.
Look at that. Look at.
Wow.
Oh my word. Matt, you did good.
Oh. Oh my.
Matt, you done good, buddy.
Wow. Well, I told him we'd give him a shout out, so we did. Okay, as we wrap up.
Oh man, I'm going to need a place to lay down after that.
I want to, so we always have a sponsor for the show, and so I am gifting you, my good friend Chef Kevin Shinn, the sponsorship for this episode, which by the way, this is episode 28 for those of you keeping track at home. And you can find us, this will drop on Friday. Today is Wednesday.
It's hard to keep track.
It doesn't matter.
I have no reference.
Anyway, this will drop on Friday, both the video and the audio. But so the sponsor for today's episode 28 is this book that is so beautiful that you wrote. So tell us about.
Yeah.
And you still have some copies left.
I have some left. It was I began to write a blog when we opened the restaurant in 2007, just as a way to chronicle the story for myself. I didn't know what a blog was, but somebody said you should do that, and so I did. And then soon after we were open, a good friend of mine, Chris Ricewig, was dining with some friends, and I came by her table and asked her how it was going, how everything was, and she said, "I love everything about your restaurant, but one thing."
Except.
I said, "What's that?" And she said, your website.
Yeah.
I said, what do you not like about my website? I said, "There's no pictures." "Well, Chris, I'm a writer. I'm not a photographer." She said, "I'm a photographer, not a writer."
Yeah.
And so we struck up an agreement that day that she would come down and take photos of food, and then she could have the food. And that grew over 10 years to the point where we had thousands and thousands of pictures archived. Fast forward then, a year later, I'm beginning to hear comments, "Are you going to write a book? You should write a cookbook." And I don't think, no, I don't know. And so I asked a friend, "Hey, how do you know," he's an author and an editor. I said, "How do you know what to take on as a writing project?" And he said, "Well, 3 things. 1, is it a story that has to be told?"
Yep.
He said,
Yep.
2, am I the person to tell that story? And 3, do I have what it takes to finish the project? Finish the job.
Yeah. Do you have
And I could not get past question number 1. I just thought, this is not a story anybody wants to know, and it's a restaurant that opened and closed and had some good times, and then the comments kept, "Are you going to write a book? You should write a book." And so I realized maybe I'm asking the wrong question, maybe the story to be told is not about a restaurant.
Right.
Maybe it's something bigger.
Right.
And then I realized what the restaurant was a story of hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I realized that's a story that I can tell.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that can tell that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see it to the end.
Yeah.
And it was tabled for a while because of Karen's illness, but we saw it cross the finish line.
Well, and I know many people have told you this. I'm so thankful. So here's a little bit of the photography that Kevin's talking about in the book, and we can. So I'm so thankful, and so many people are thankful. Look how young you were there. Holy smokes!
Yeah. I was certainly 35.
And it has not only that story,
recipes. There's a lot of favorite recipes.
Yeah.
The hummus, the apple butter, the apple cream, the red pesto. There's unfortunately the cinnamon roll recipe is not in there.
Hang on to that.
Nor are there any bread recipes in there.
Hang on to that.
And you can go to my YouTube channel for bread recipes. The reason I didn't put bread recipes in there is because bread is mostly technique.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm getting a lot of questions online. Hey, my starter doesn't look right, or my bread doesn't feel right, and so it requires a little bit of investigation.
Yeah. Well, we've had this conversation. I could never be a baker. I'm a decent cook. Mm-hmm. I enjoy.
And those two are very different people.
Because I'm creative, and I don't have to follow a recipe. I just, how about this, and how about that? I feel like this.
Yep.
I get another gin and tonic, and how about this? But I could never do the baking thing because it's science.
You got to follow some rules.
Yeah, and I can't do that. So, okay, so how can our viewers and listeners find this book?
They can go to www.55degrees.us/shop, and that will take you to a place you can order my book.
Great. And we will put that on the notes for the episode. And so let me just wrap up by saying thanks to producer Steve Van Hoosen. Amazing work. He came out here in the middle of the day. And we haven't even offered you a beer yet, Steve. Okay, you're good? The people who aren't here, that are normally here, Kathy Plunkett from Kathy Plunkett Photography is usually here. Kim Remington, the operations manager for Parsons Public Relations. The music you're hearing is the theme music that was produced by Jack Rodenberg. Fuse Co-working is typically a host and Parsons Public Relations, but most importantly, I want to thank my good friend, Chef Kevin Shinn, for being our guest on episode, what did I say?
28.
Episode 28.
28.
And so thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, brother.